So what is the general sense now that the 12-team playoff is done? What do people think about it? What do you think?
I think people loved the what it did for not just the regular season, but I think there was intrigue about. They really liked that it was some of the games were on college campuses. I think they would like to see more of that, but I think they're not severing ties with the bowl people that have had long-standing relationships. So I think that's not changing. I would have suspected some point. So they had the leaders of the sport got together on Sunday just for like an hour and a half. And if there was any tweaks or changes they were going to make, they had to be voted on unanimously, I think, which is harder to do. I think you'll see more change, real change, a year from now when they can, and they don't need it to be 100% approved that there can be.
Why was this? It's just a bylaw that they're all going to.
Well, I think what's going to change, though, is you have so much power that is with the head of the Big Ten, the head of the SEC. I don't know, how that dynamic is going to help the people who are on the lower end of the food chain. But, how the seeding happened. Remember, we had, like a 7 and an 8 playing. I mean, they weren't the 7th and 8th best team.
Hey, man, we had Ward Manuel on the day after the field was set and the brackets were set. And he's just like, they just went 1 through 12 and it just came out the way it came out. And I agree with you 100%. And, we had Dan Wetzel of Yahoo on, and he said when they first came up with the idea that the Power 5, 4 of them would have to get the buys, it was done when there was a Pac-12. It was done when Texas and Oklahoma were in the Big 12. And now things have changed that it shouldn't be done that way. We should see maybe a runner-up of a conference get a bye over a winner of another conference, when you're using common sense eye test and things of that nature. And I understand that makes things more subjective and open for debate and anger. But let's get this right. We think what should be done is the bye week teams get a home game too. Now you're messing with the bowls, which is a big problem.
That is a big issue. I know this from talking to one of the coaches who played a first-round game, and he was on a road team. And he said the home field advantage is huge, because everything has to be like a silent count. You're not getting off the ball as fast as the other team. I mean, you looked at the biggest example of that was, I think Kevin Jennings, the SMU quarterback, is a pretty good player. He had a nightmare of a day going into Happy Valley, and it was like noon, but he was like a turnover machine because he looked rattled, not just by the noise, but also the cold. There's like different elements. I mean, you talk to people who are at Ohio State, they were like, Tennessee didn't even want to be there that night. They felt like. And
you would think if Oregon does win the Big Ten,
they did.
Yeah. They should have gotten whoever was their first round opponent at home. Stick them up there in Oregon, which is one of the toughest places to win. Like that, if they are the number 1 seed of the entire thing. So
make the regular season. Make the regular season count more, because I'm a firm believer. The college football season is long, but it's not as long as certainly any other sport. But you don't want to devalue the regular season, and I feel like if you gave that kind of reward for it, I think that would add incentive to the regular season. I mean, the part that I struggle with is. And there was a lot of pushback after the first round of the games. Indiana, gets beaten pretty handily by Notre Dame, and SMU gets drilled. But then all of a sudden, like later in the at the end of the first round, Tennessee from the SEC also gets smacked around by Ohio State. But I think people are sitting there going, "Wait, you're a team," and this is especially the SEC teams, that was going to get the benefit of the doubt, or usually does, but you're going to have 3 losses, and it's one thing to have like one bad loss, but you have like a bad loss and then a couple other losses that are like not against elite teams. It's like you can't have that many mulligans, right, and still make the playoff. And I think that's the thing that you can look at Indiana's resume. And by the way, Indiana ended up losing to the national champs and they ended up losing to a team that played for the national title. And, you know, they did beat a team that beat Alabama in the bowl game, you know. So I think it's just like, hey, you're not, when you have a 12-team playoff, and even if it ever ends up at 16, the resumes are going to be flawed because you have that many more. It's not 4 anymore.
The
it's
national
12.
champion lost 2 games, including one of the worst losses by that team in the history of their rivalry. Honestly, one of the Michigan team that beat them was one of the, as you know, more troubled,
limited
versions of Michigan. But so you need
you
to
can
throw it.
yeah.
You need to throw out the. I mean, a 6 seed in the NFL might win the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So
we accept that. We accept that more.
Do. So
Didn't the Giants win a Super Bowl as a wild card a long time ago?
Of course they did. I mean, we've seen 6 seeds do it multiple times. And we don't bat an eye in the professional sport, but the reason why is because the schedule amongst everybody in the NFL is as close to even. In college football, when they're choosing who to play and when and what the bye week is and all that on their own, that's the issue. You got to handle all of that. That might actually make the playoff better if you do. And so a 2 or 3 loss team can still make it, and we won't bat an eye, and they might win the whole damn thing too. Like we just saw that. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.